Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Week 3, last week on sabbatical. This is my last forum that I'm teaching until I return in the fall. And so yeah, big moment, big day. Have you ever been on sabbatical before in your field, in your line of work? No. Do we know of any lines of work that do it besides clergy and academia? Not really. Those are the two fields that I hear about it in. But I talked to someone this week who worked nationwide for years in HR. That was their career, and he kept telling me how they were trying to institute it there. We kept finding it to be very difficult to implement because for so many jobs where you don't have a built-in break as schooling does for many people, right? So one teacher friend of mine said, hey, teachers get a sabbatical every year. And I said, hey, you said that, not me. A lot of my other teacher friends would want to harm you for saying that. But those were her words. Every summer I get a sabbatical, and why shouldn't other people? And then academia often makes space for it as well for a variety of reasons, right? For sometimes professors go and work on a project or write, take time away from the regular teaching duties. And that was something somebody asked me this week, you're taking your sabbatical, you're going to write your book, as if I have an idea for a book. I don't. I mean, in any clear sense, I've had some vague ideas. And no, absolutely not, because that would be work. Yeah. I'm not working. I'm doing the opposite of work. Now, if somehow I felt utterly invigorated by the discipline of writing, maybe, but I've never spoken to or heard from a writer who experiences writing that way. It's much more like giving birth. Worth it for what happens on the far end of it, but a struggle along the way, right? I don't know any successful writers who describe writing as anything other than a profound struggle. So no, I will not be writing. I will be resting. So let's jump in and someone read this Leviticus 25 passage for us. I know that we read Leviticus all the time in our private devotional life, and so this is old hat for all of us, but just in case you haven't read Leviticus 25 for a while, let's read these first 7 verses. Would someone be brave enough to read it for the whole group?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
The Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving you, the land shall observe a Sabbath for the Lord. 6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in their yield. But in the 7th year there should be a Sabbath of complete rest for the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap the aftergrowth of your harvest or gather the grapes of your unpruned vine. It shall be a year of complete rest for the land. You may eat what the land yields during its Sabbath. You, your male and female slaves, your hired and your bound laborers who live with you, for your livestock also, and for the wild animals in your land. All its yield shall be for food."
Thank you. So we get this, there's a pattern of 7s, right, throughout the scripture. The first one is this initial institute of the Sabbath at creation, reiterated then at Mount Sinai for the Israelites before they become a nation, that every 7 days you take a day where you're just not working. You stop working, stop producing. And also for everybody else in your life, that it's not a private, personal retreat between you and God, but it is something for the entire community to enjoy, to be able to stop doing the commercial work, the labor work, and instead enjoy this gift of rest for which we're created. So that's every 7 days. Well, now here comes Leviticus saying, that's just the first Sabbath, right? The weekly Sabbath. But there is also one that comes every 7 years. And in that Sabbath, you're going to give the land a rest, not just 1 day a week, but for the entire year. right? And then right after this, which we didn't include, is the final Sabbath, the Sabbath of all Sabbaths, which is the year of Jubilee. That after 7 years of this type of Sabbath, eventually in that 49th, 50th year, there is this nationwide Sabbath in which slaves are freed, in which all debts are erased entirely, and land that had been sold during that 50-year period is returned to its original owners. And that's actually the most radical of them. According to Leviticus, those first two are supposed to be done every 7 years. The slaves are supposed to be set free every 7 years. The debts are supposed to be erased every 7 years. But the land going back to its original owner, that happens every 50 years. So you get these major economic resets, radical. It would be called, what would we call it in our time if anybody ran on a platform like this? Suicide, yes.
Probably socialism.
Yeah, communist, socialist. You're taking land away from people, private properties being taken away, debts are being erased. This would be described as some form of socialism or communism. And interestingly, we see historically that when there have been major revolutions, whether they're in France or in other places, one of the very first things that the people do when they've seized power is burn all of the bank ledgers. That happened in France in the Revolution. It's happened in other parts of the world too. And it's a fascinating thing. I don't know enough about the French Revolution to know, was that influenced by their readings of Scripture, or was this just the people who were so oppressed by debt that they took this first radical step?
The main character of Fight Club did it as well, but he did it electronically.
That's right, in Fight Club.
Often we remember Fight Club for different reasons, but that really, it was interesting that was what seemed to underlay the whole thing.
And any of us remember the Jubilee campaign from the year 2000? There was this giant campaign led by Bono and then a bunch of other musicians, social activist musicians, Radiohead and Coldplay and many others were involved with it, to ask nations who are holding debt for third world countries to erase all of those debts in 2000, to eat the debt in honor of this biblical precedent. And, significant amounts were erased. And obviously they did not get anywhere near all of what they hoped for, but they got something. Interestingly, of course, biblical scholars disagree with each other about whether or not Israel actually did these things. We don't know if this is a real practice that took place, or if this was an ideal that was uplifted in Scripture, and then the realities of economic daily life make it feel impossible. We don't know, all we can do is speculate as to whether or not it took place. But nonetheless, this ideal is lifted up, right? It's here for us. So whether it's something that we are to aspire to, something that we are to claim again that is part of our faith history, it doesn't really matter. It's here for us for the taking, should we want it to be taken. So when I came to Covenant, I was interested in sabbatical pretty early on, because there's a policy in our presbytery about 7 years service within the same presbytery. You get 3 months off. That's our presbytery policy around sabbatical. Now, you need to be in the church that you're serving at for at least, I think it's 2 years before you take it. So I brought that up probably in year 2. We just finished year 5, and personnel was quite open to it. Now, interestingly, you all had a policy sabbatical long before I got here. It's in our personnel manual. And so I don't know who created that. I don't know who's chair personnel when this took place. Maybe some of you know. But it is for full-time employees at Covenant that after 5 years of service, you get 2 months off. Not just for pastors, but for any full-time employee. And like a lot of other places, I don't know that we've taken advantage of that. I don't know when that came on the books, and if it's been taken advantage of by others or not. I don't think we've had full-time employees, apart from Caroline and you, that have made it 5 years plus since I've been here, that I'm aware of. Others are part-time, but that's not what the policy applies to. So what we decided, because I've not been here 7 years yet, but I have been here 5, is we thought, well, let's just shoot for that 3 months right off the bat, and do that through a combination of the 6 weeks off that I'm given every year as part of my pastoral package, as well as the 2 months offered by the covenant policy. And it didn't really, at the time, we kind of talked, which is better to follow? Do you want to follow the Presbyterian one or the covenant one? And there's actually reasons to say that the covenant one might be in my best interest to follow, especially moving forward, because 5 years down the road, 2 months off might be a good way to do it. So we agreed to it, and incredibly, session, we meaning personnel, and I agreed to it, and session was in favor of doing this as well. So what I did was apply for this Lilly grant, which some of you may remember. We did a recording of it on Sunday morning. And the Lilly grant, Lilly Foundation, that you see the ads for drugs all the time. They have huge amounts of money that they give to all kinds of Christian purposes, based out of Indianapolis. And one of them is to encourage congregations and pastors to take sabbaticals. And so there's this significant grant proposal that you have to go through if you want to apply for it. And the overriding question they ask in the formation of this proposal is, what makes your heart sing? This is what they want you to consider as you're going on sabbatical. What is it that makes your heart sing? So they're very much in that space of, this is not here to be instrumentalized into something else, that you're taking this time off in order to prepare for the next stage of your career so you can become whatever. Instead, it's meant to be a season of rest and delight. So that was the question that I wrestled with significantly while writing this proposal. And I kept coming back to my favorite verse in all Scripture. Mark 1, 10 and 11. And just as he was coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens torn apart and the Spirit descending like a dove upon him. And a voice came from the heavens, "You are my Son, the beloved. With you I'm well pleased." I think about this verse all the time. It is in the back of my mind all the time. I'm going to start, I had my first kind of interview this week, spiritual direction again. And my last experience of spiritual direction, which is kind of like counseling, kind of like therapy, but with a spiritual bent to it, where the focus isn't so much about necessarily healing, though it can be. It can very much be about that. It's about trying to discern God's voice in your life. So I'd done that before in the past, and I didn't really love my spiritual director because he kept asking this question. We'd spend time talking, whatever, and he said, "Okay, so what's God saying to you in all this?" And I just go back to, I think God's saying that he loves me. Because this is my theology. Like, I don't walk through my life and wonder, what is God thinking about me today? I think that I'm in a space where I'm assuming God's blessing and love and delight are upon me. So I don't need to wonder, what is God saying to me? That this is what God's saying to me at all times, in every place. So I didn't find that a particularly helpful question. So we stopped when this spiritual director several years ago moved to Louisville. I said, just leave it. Well, we're starting again. And this verse was at the top of my mind as we sat down and talked about a sabbatical together, of what would it mean to spend 3 months basking in the delight of God. And what would it mean to do that at this stage of my life? Because that's going to change dramatically based on the stage of life that you're in. If I were doing the sabbatical 3 years from now, I think I might do something that a lot of people do, like go walk the Camino in Spain, this long pilgrimage all the way across Spain that pilgrims take every year. Or maybe I'd go to Iona in Scotland and spend time connecting with Celtic Christianity. Or the spiritual director I met with said, oh, he's spending the next month going through every single national park in California and Oregon and Washington. He's going to hit all of them. That sounds wonderful, and I would love doing all those things by myself or with others, but that's not the stage of life that I'm in. Stage of life that I'm in is that this summer is the last summer before Asher's senior year in high school, which doesn't mean that we won't have time together, just he and I in the future, but it's going to change, right? His availability will change. His capacity to spend time with me is going to change, and I don't want to miss that time by being off on my own, walking across Spain when he's at home in this last summer before his senior year. So I shaped this around the most important relationships that I have in my life. So obviously God, and then it's Sarah and Asher, right? These are the most important relationships. So what would it look like to spend 3 months rooted in rest and delight with these most important relationships that I have? So that's what we've formed. That's what I've formed. And that's what I'm going to do. So first relationship, delight with God. I'm going back to True Nature Holistic Retreat. David and Alana's retreat up in Holmes County. I think I've got their website up here. Here's True Nature Holistic Retreat. There's David and Alana. I went to this retreat years ago. I was at Central College at the time, so probably, 2015, 2016, somewhere in there. And I spent several days with them. And it's this lovely, quiet yoga, massage, nature retreat. And it's quite humble. Meaning, there are several rooms you can stay with them. There's cabins, there's places here. I chose the one that has running water. And a toilet that flushes. There are other options for outdoor showers. And I thought maybe I'll even try the outdoor shower. But I don't want it to be my only access to shower, right? And I'm not against composting toilets necessarily, but I'd like to be able to I don't know, I've never used one. So how can I be for it or against it, right? How do I know if I like it or don't like it? I've never used one, but I'm going to be staying in the one room they have that has running water and a bathroom just to myself. So I'm going to spend this first week. My last day here will be May 17th, and I'm heading up to Holmes County with David and Alana the day after, so May 18th, and through the rest of that week. And it's very quiet. And there'll be, I said, moments with them throughout the day where I'll do meals, I think, are by myself. But if I'm getting a massage, David will take care of that. If I'm doing yoga, that'll be with Alana. But a lot of it's just going to be time alone. Quiet, silent, solitude, meditation, spiritual reading. This week, boxes of books are starting to pile up because I'm just creating this gigantic reading list. And of course, I'm not going to get through all these books. And I know that I won't get through all these books. But the goal is to have as many around me as possible that delight my heart. So I'll be spending significant time with the mystics, particularly the female mystics. There are 4 doctors of the church. The Catholic Church has their own designations. If you're a doctor of the church, it means that you're this, all-time teacher. And there's 4 women throughout the history of the church who've been doctors. I've only read one of them, Teresa of Avila. So maybe I should read the other 3: Catherine of Siena, Hildegard of Bingen, and Saint Teresa of Lisieux. I don't know if that's how you say her name, but I'll be reading them. I'll be reading Mirror by Star. Of course, I'll have my good friends Richard Rohr and Greg Boyle with me as well. So lots of time spent reading. In fact, the very first time that I read Julian of Norwich was with David and Alana when I was there last time. So I'm going to bring Julian back with me as well. So a week just of silence, solitude, spiritual reading at a place that I connected with in the past and felt like the right place to return to as I began here in May. So that's the first thing, right? And all these I'm considering pilgrimages, not just like vacation. They're all pilgrimages. They're all going to places that are connected to my past, that are connected to parts of my story or my family's story, and bringing a spirituality into these visits as opposed to just tourism. So that's the first thing, right? Is this time of delight with God. That'll be in May. Now in June is the big trip, and this trip was started by asking our family, the three of us, if anywhere in the world you want to go, where would we go? And Asher kept saying Finland. Okay, then let's go to Finland. So Essela is a Finnish name. My ancestors, of course, are from Finland, and the last time that I did a DNA test, it showed that my father's Finnish heritage is, on average, he is more Finn by genetic roots than the average person living in Helsinki right now, which is pretty wild. He's like 98% Finn, and the average person in Helsinki is like 92. So we're going back to this place that my father's never been to. I've certainly never been to. And we're going to try to get in touch with our family roots in a variety of ways, from reaching out to people who live there. I've got family members. Now, as I've been told the story, like all family stories, what part's true, I don't know. But I've been told that the name Essela was taken when my ancestor came to America and took that name. So you're not going to find Esselas in Finland. They don't exist, as far as I know. But you will find Tumalas, and you will find, gosh, I'm forgetting the other surname. And so planning on connecting with some family while we're there. And ChatGPT has helped me create a really excellent itinerary for our time. We thought about going up to the Lapland, which is way up north, North Pole area. But one, it's summertime. I would love to see the Lapland, but I think I'd want to go in winter where the Aurora Borealis are out and get to see the North Pole when it's cold and dark, as opposed to when the sun never sets, which is cool in its own right. But we're not planning on going up to Lapland, in part because it's really takes a long time to get there. I didn't know Finland was so large north to south. It's like a 6 to 8 hour train ride. I don't really want to get there and then spend 8 hours on a train and then have to take that back. So instead, we're going to take day trips from Helsinki to different parts of Finland. Turku, which is the old capital, out in the west, and then other places as well. We're considering a day trip to Estonia, which Rick Steves has informed us is what all the Finlanders do, that they take a day trip to Estonia and come back, so we may do that as well. So this is delight with the three of us, right? The three, Sarah, Asher, and myself, creating a trip that we hope brings great joy and delight to the three of us. Then I wanted to create separate times with both Asher and with Sarah. So Asher, right, he's got this last summer before his senior year, which means we got to look at colleges. So we're going to do that. We've been doing that. We'll continue to do that before we get there. But he and I are going to take a trip to all of the places of my childhood that he's never been to. So yes, we've been to St. Louis to see Cardinals games before. And we'll probably catch a Cardinals game when we go there again. And we're going to visit St. Louis University, probably Washington University as well. But we're going to go back to this neighborhood that I have the faintest memory here. We moved when I was 4. But I still remember, I know what the house looks like. I remember the neighborhood. I remember my brother's friend, Charles. So we're going to go back to those places and see them. And St. Louis, even though we moved when I was so young, it's been such a symbol throughout my life of kind of the Garden of Eden. It's when we were happy, which isn't to say that we weren't happy after that, but when you start uprooting children and moving them around, it's not as easy, especially when we were there at that time. My dad's parents lived there, and my Uncle Tim and Aunt Diane, and Dan and Chris and Uncle Danny lived there, and for a time Uncle Paul lived there. So we have family on both sides, my mother's side and my father's side. So my earliest memories are like all of us together watching Cardinals games, which is a great time to be a Cardinals fan because we're winning the World Series. And it was lovely. And then we moved to Rockford, where we're all by ourselves. So did we experience joy after that? Of course we did. But if there was a Garden of Eden in my life, It's St. Louis. And innocence is lost the moment we leave. So that's probably why I'm such a strong Cardinals fan, right? Because it goes back to these most early and cherished memories. So we'll start in St. Louis, we'll head up to Chicago. We're gonna skip Rockford. Rockford was preschool, kindergarten. I've got some memories there, but not as important to me. So we're gonna go to Chicago, where my dad planted a congregation in 1985. Good time to move to Chicago to become a Bears fan.
Yes, it was.
1985. So if you want to, why am I so passionate about the Bears? Why have I already checked on what the Bears have done in the last 12 hours today? Because, I'm a Bears, that's why. So we're gonna go to Chicago and see these places again that he's never seen before. And we're gonna eat great food, and we're gonna go to see Northwestern and some other schools while we're there as well. And then finally we'll head up to Minnesota, which is the only place in the world where the name Esala may have some familiarity, because that's where my ancestors settled, up in the northern range, almost up to Canada. Tower, Minnesota is the place where I spent several summers throughout my childhood. Not the whole summer, but that when we went on vacation, this is where we would go to go stay with usually my Grammy and my Papa, and then after they moved away to see my cousin Lainey, who's probably who we'll stay with when we go up there. So we're gonna fish, and we'll go to the Boundary Waters, and we'll probably go to the University of Minnesota on the way up, because it's the only school in the country that teaches Finnish that we are aware of, and Asher's been interested in Finnish along the way too. So this is what he and I will do together, our big road trip of father and son delight. I'm gonna go to band camp with him. I do that every year. It's my last chance to go to band camp with him. And then I'm gonna build a vibraphone with him, because Asher plays vibraphone. And if you buy a vibraphone commercially, they're like $4,000 to $6,000. So he found a website, buildavibraphone.com. That outlines how to build a vibraphone for like $600 or less. So we're gonna try, and who knows? Maybe it's gonna be easy. Maybe it's gonna be profoundly difficult. Maybe we'll regret ever trying. Yeah, and it's also, I've not really taught him. I'm not particularly handy myself, but I can do some things. So let's learn to do that together. Right? Let's teach him to use a drill. I've never taught him to use a drill. Let's build things. Let's screw them together. Let's go to the metal supermarket and get the metal that we need, and that's going to be our big project together throughout the summer. And then finally with Sarah, Sarah's going to be really busy, right? Because she doesn't get a sabbatical when I do. So thankfully, she has space in her life to go to Finland with us. And then she's right into 4th of July parade for the city of Dublin. And then there's this thing called the Dublin Irish Festival, you might have heard of, that she helps run all of the volunteers for that gigantic event. So she is super busy at this time of year. But before Asher was born, we had this thing called weekly date nights. And they died when he was born. We still go on, but there's no weekly commitment ever to be like, hey, let's go on a date tonight. So we get on a date once or twice a month, sporadically. But since I will have no evening meetings for 3 straight months, apart from the meetings of softball games that I choose to go play at, we thought, let's reinstitute an old practice from 17 years ago of having weekly date nights. And then when the Irish Festival is finally over, we will take a few nights together at the Hocking Hills Lodge, which will be the last thing before I come back on August 17th or 18th or 16th, somewhere in there. So those are the 4 sabbaticals, right? Self and God, the 3 of us, Asher and myself, and Sarah and I. And then throughout the time, I'm going to be doing all kinds of stuff, from of course, daily exercise. I do that already. Sarah and I were talking about it, saying maybe I should try to not exercise more. Yeah. Honestly, because I'm doing enough. Doing more, I'm just going to hurt myself. Yeah. Don't need another broken sternum this time. You've already done that. Let's get that out. But keep it building. We have this centering prayer group here on Thursday mornings, and I love it, where we sit for 20 minutes and silence and meditation every week. And I thought, what if I make this as best as I can within reason, a daily practice on my own? Spiritual reading. I want to get outside every day. I want to listen to music every day. And I'm going to fast from social media for 3 straight months. No Facebook, no Insta, no anything. Which means I'm not going to know what's going on in many of your lives. And I'm okay with that. Though I think it's probably going to be harder on me than I think it is, but will be good for me. So no social media engagement whatsoever throughout the 3 months. Those will be my daily practice, and then regular practice, right? Weekly date nights. I want to go see old friends if there's space. I want to get to DC and Jersey to see some old friends, playing softball, getting massages, spiritual direction, space for grief. So last week when we talked about Tricia Hershey's book, Rest is Resistance, she was the one who brought up how rest creates space in our hearts for grief, which I immediately knew to be true in my own life and experience. But it occurred to me that, I hadn't thought of intentionally making space for grief over the course of this 3 months. I think I need to do that. So that's where getting a spiritual director came in. There are plenty, I can grieve in a variety of ways and do, but having someone whose job I'll pay you just to sit and listen to my grief story is for me a profoundly worthy investment of my time and my money. The last year has been really hard on me. Profoundly difficult. One of the most difficult years of my professional life has been the last year. For a variety of reasons. Some of you might know some. I think I've done a pretty good job of not letting many of you know why. And I think that's appropriate. I think I'm not sharing because I'm trying to hide things or because I'm evading or keeping secrets. There are plenty of people in this church who need to know, who know what I've been through in the past year. But it's been profoundly difficult. The way that I shared with the staff at our Christmas party was, I broke my chest last February, lifting weights. Stupid accident, freak accident, but broke my sternum. And what I realized is that became a metaphor for the year for me. Because the sternum's job is to protect the heart. That's what it's there for. And it did its job. My heart's still beating, it's still going, and I'm still here, and I'm grateful for that. But it hurt pretty darn bad. And so I've done some grief work along the way, but I don't know about you, but I bet if you've been through a funeral, death of someone close to you, there's this time where you are able to grieve kind of along the way, but then it's when things are truly over, right? And by over, I mean you've closed the estate, you've sold the house, right? There are these steps that keep taking, and finally you can, when all of that stuff is done, there is this space to breathe and go, and now breathing can really begin. And it's like, wait, I've been doing it the whole time, as I know you have. But the rest and the space creates opportunities for more grief. So I'm truly looking forward to having time and space to do that, where I can grieve without having to think about my next sermon, without having to think about being here for the staff meeting and being strong for other people, or being at the hospital room to be with other people. I can actually take this space away to just focus on some of my own wounds and what I've been through. And we'll see how it goes. I think my plan is primarily to talk about what's happened in the last couple years, since really focus on my 5 years here and going through that. I think I've done a pretty good job of grieving the old stuff, but grief also is, those who've been through it, it's a spiral, right? And so in that spiral of grief are opportunities to revisit old wounds too. So I don't plan to resist them should they come up, but they are not high on my agenda. The agenda is to go through the broken chest and the heart that's still beating And I'm very, very grateful to have time and space to do that. So that's the plan. That's what I'm going to be doing. And when I'm away, I'm planning on being truly away. So David Bubb and I have already talked about this, and we'll talk about it more. When there are big losses in the church, I will deal with them when I get back. Yeah. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be hard for me too, right? I know it'll be hard for some members here. I talked to someone recently who said, well, I hope you're here when my loved one dies so that you can do the funeral. I said, yeah, I hope I would like that too. Because I care about you and your loved one, but I may not be. And if I'm not coming to the funeral.
But you have to refresh also.
Yeah, I've got to truly turn off. And it's such a gift the covenant's giving me, right? It is such a gift. And this is not something I've earned. It's a gift that you all are giving me, and I don't want to spoil it by allowing my heart to be pulled back in when I'm being given this opportunity to rest in rooted delight with those that I love. And some of the other things I've been thinking about the past couple of weeks is, and part of the spiritual direction, what would it mean for me to fall in love with God again over the course of these 3 months? Which isn't to say that I'm not in love with God now, but what about again? And I thought, what about your wife? Same thing. What would it mean to fall in love with your wife again? Which isn't to say that we aren't in love right now. I think we are, but here's this rare opportunity. What can we do with this time to intentionally cultivate opportunities to fall in love with each other again? So that's the plan. And I can't wait. I think we're 57 days away. And there's a lot to do between now and then, which I'm working hard. I'm doing my best. I said to someone, yeah, I'm trying really hard to not, I should say, I don't even have to say I'm trying. I am not phoning it in. I have not been phoning it in any time this year. I've been working my tail off, and I'll keep doing that while taking my weekly Sabbath until the time is right. Patty, you.
Just, this has been helpful. A comment back on Leviticus, as I think about it, and you said about the 50-year Jubilee. When I was with Peace USA Mission people in the early 2000s in Peru, we talked about that a little bit. And, I didn't realize, and I learned that the country of Peru has borrowed money from the IMF, International Monetary Fund. I'm not exactly sure what for. Infrastructure, I don't really know. But every man, woman, and child in Peru owes the IMF $7,000.
Yeah.
For the loan, which is more than what anyone earns in a year.
Sure.
And the interest on this debt that they pay to the IMF has many, many, many times paid over the principal, but the principal still exists.
Yeah.
And then we were asked to imagine what would happen if the IMF forgave that loan, and that money the country pays is freed up to do health, schooling, other economic development things. I mean, I still remember that idea of what to do if your debt is forgiven.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we think of credit card debt or people got into their own problems, but I think countries can explode with growth when debts are forgiven.
Yes.
And I'm not a farmer either, but I think this idea of the Sabbath and the no-till and all that, the land is so much richer, right? When you don't farm it for a year. So I think there's really good practical reasons for this biblical mandate. And I don't think we always know what's going to come out of the ground after your sabbatical or after
exactly
your
right.
last fallow. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what I'm like when I come back. I love this church. I love this call. There's nothing inside me that's like, it's a time to go. So just so you know. Now, could that happen over 3 months? I suppose it could. But I don't anticipate that at all. I love it here, and I'm planning to stay for several more years. But as far as I mentioned that before, like I'm so grateful to be able to do this before I'm burnt out. It's been a really hard year, but I'm also not burnt out. No, I could do another, just my I get 6 weeks off a year. It's lovely. It's a lot of time off. And I'd be fine to do that and continue in that. But what a gift to do it before you're on your last gasp. Tori.
Just wondering if you have a journaling practice or if you've considered instituting one for the length of the sabbatical, just as a way of intentionally reflecting on
Yeah.
this experience.
Journaling has been a big part of my past prayer life. I've not been doing it for years. I will noodle on that and see if it should come back. Thank you. I've got a lot of journals in my office, but it's been
I think you're gonna get a lot out of it, and it would be a way of making something permanent. And kind of like mining it for all that it's worth. Maybe after the fact.
Yeah.
It could be whatever you wanted it to be, I think. You do, well, privately, you could do that kind of video reflection that you've been doing and posting.
Yeah, I thought all those will go away in 3 months too.
Like whatever way that you have that you think would be the most beneficial.
As long as it's not performative.
Right.
That's
Well,
something you need to get away from. There's so much of this job that is performative, and I don't mean it just is. Right. This morning when I've got this church and confirmation, 3 separate performances in 3 hours, it's a lot. So I want to step away from that. But finding life-giving practices that are not performative, that allow for reflection, sounds great. Jackie.
I think building a vibraphone is the most intriguing piece.
Yes.
You could find a new career path. Or it'd be so frustrating, one of you could end up in jail.
That's right. That's right. Thankfully, Asher is not the one who gets angry. It's his dad, so he'll keep me calm. But I think it's gonna be fun to try, and that's what we thought. So let's try this together and see what happens. And if we fail, so what? So what?
How big is that thing?
It's big. Yeah, vibraphones are big.
With all those tubes?
Metal.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a giant xylophone. Keys. Yeah, quite large. Should we close with the video by Barbara Brown Taylor? She's got a short 2-minute video on Sabbath as a practice in death, which I found to be quite evocative and helpful.
Let's revisit Sabbath, and let's do point out that, at least for me, a loss or a decline in productivity is a practice in death, because productivity is the universal sort of means of valuing one another. I mean, it cashes out in dollars a lot, but it cashes out in fame, it cashes out in other ways, but it's, to be productive, to produce. Even some of our language around purpose in religious community, I worry sometimes, because there are people for whom purpose is as far away as the moon, and yet are they less for that? So Sabbath seems to me like the built-in, it's just a tonic. It's a weekly tonic. It's built into the teaching, built into the fabric of the universe, that once a week you're supposed to quit being good for anything. But your creatureliness, and perhaps also pleasure. That's the thing about Sabbath, is the pleasure of no work, but plenty of food and company for dinner, and all the rest of it. But I'll tell you, if you live in the Sabbath for a while, it's a little death. It's a little day on which you can't earn anything and don't buy or sell. And there's some real, it makes you almost faint for a while to give up all the things that keep you propped up the rest of the week. So I've always thought there's a kind of yin and yang to Sabbath. People flock to it for the rest part, the hammock part, but once they get into it, there's the looking into the night sky part, which is, why am I here?
So I'm hoping to embrace the yin and the yang of the Sabbath. Yes, delight. I think we're going to have a lovely time, and certainly hope and pray and anticipate that will be the case. But within that, when was the last time I had 3 months off? It's a kid. I don't know what to do with myself. So it's going to be wonderful to not know what to do with myself and learn how to be human again, apart from producing, and back to these most primal relationships that I've been so blessed with. So incredibly grateful for the opportunity and trust that you'll be in great hands with David and Kathy while I'm away. Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you that you've created us for more than work. Yes, each of us does have a purpose, and we're here to love one another, to use our gifts to bless this world in whatever way that we can, but we're also created to rest, to stop doing and remember what it is to just be. For this upcoming gift of rest that I will be on, I'm so grateful. And I pray that in my time away, that Covenant in its own way is able to engage in a form of Sabbath as well. A time to be away, so that when we reunite, we're changed, reminded of why we're here, that the little death that we experience in this time might equip us for the life that we have together as well. Lord, may each of us find opportunities, moments, hours, days, even months, to receive this incredible gift that you've given to us, the gift of rest. Amen.